Hello and welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, don't forget to say hello in the comments. Today I'm taking part in a back to school challenge which has been set by Heidi Sonboul. Do check out Heidi's channel. The idea is to make a teacher gift or piece of home decor to mark the occasion of going back to school. Now here in the UK we don't go back to school until early August, so this will give you lots of time to think about whether you want to make a teacher gift to send your children back to school with. When I was little, I can remember taking flowers from my garden to my teacher. I used to pack them into a little wicker bag. I'm never quite sure how I managed to keep them alive on the school bus. I can't remember what my mum would have done. Would she give me a jam jar or wrapped it up in a piece of toilet tissue? Do check out Heidi's channel. She has loads of amazing videos and she's almost at 100,000 subscribers. I'll leave a link to her in the show notes underneath this video, as well as the playlist for all the other contributors to the challenge, so make sure you check them out. For this project, I've taken an old enamel bucket and given it a bit of a makeover and added in some fresh flowers. I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. I share lots of handy hints for flower arranging. Here in the UK, we're just slowly coming out of lockdown, so I haven't been able to buy fresh flowers for ages and ages. Normally on my channel, I share how to do fresh flower arranging projects, but in recent months, I've been turning my hand to DIYs, making lots of containers ready for when I can go back out and buy flowers again. This bucket started out as a cream-coloured bucket, and you can see that I've spray painted it, added in a farmhouse enamel look detail and a decal as well. The thing I love best is the little rope handle. I haven't gone all the way around the handle with my rope. I've just created an accent detail, a little lozenge of string in the middle. And as my flowers are cut down low, you can still hold the bucket by its handle. And at rest, the handle slides over the edge. When your flowers have died, add more flowers or use the container as a pen pot. So let's get started. I've come out into my garden to spray my bucket. You see me here stretching out an old paint cloth, and if you are using spray paint, always make sure you use it in a well ventilated room. So this is the bucket as it originally was. I'm going to take off the handle here. I'm going to leave that just the natural metal colour, and then I'm just looking at the natural wear and tear on the bucket. I'm just noting where that is because I might add those details in as natural chips in my enamel wear look with the finished bucket. I'm using Rust-Oleum spray paint. I've got a surface primer and I'll give that a light spray to start with, and then I'm going to add the top coat of Painter's Touch, which is in a satin white finish. Before I start painting, I give my paint a really good shake, and then I will apply it in lots of light strokes. I don't want to just go for it. I'll end up with paint drips all over the place. So the primer does go on in a very light way, and I'll twist and turn the bucket until I finish covering it all, and then let that dry and come back in with my top coat. For a really professional look, I also painted the bottom of the bucket and also the top edge, but I did leave the inside bottom cream, so I got a gradation of colour in the inside edge. And this is adding in the top coat, so I've given that a really good shake, and then I will add in lots of light spray coats again, letting it dry in between. It was a really hot day when I did this, and the paint dried really quickly, so I was able to complete this part of the project in double quick time. While I was waiting for my paint to dry, I started adding on the string detail to the metal handle. So you see me here actually tying a clove hitch onto my handle, but any knot will do, and pull it tight, and then I'm just going to quite simply start over wrapping the handle. So I'm cutting off the excess string and I'm going to start wrapping around, and I'll hide in that tail as I get going. You'll see my piece of string here is become unravelled. I like to use my string from the inside edge, and I've got a piece of washi tape around the outside edge of the string, and for some reason this whole ball of string has just fallen apart. You can see me here going over and over, catching in the knotted end of the rope, and once that's done, it's tucked in and it's out of the way. So I probably started about a third of the way up the handle, and then I'm going to wrap over the middle third and then build up the string in the middle, so I get a nice sort of graded, almost a lozenge of string, which gives a lovely detail. When I've worked out how long I want the rope handle section to be, you see me going back on myself, and this time I'm over wrapping round and round and round in the same place, and that makes the string much chunkier, and then I fade that out towards the other side as well. Just gives a really nice graded shape from very thin to getting progressively chunkier, a nice chunky bit in the middle, and then it gets thin again at the outside edge. As I started finishing off the handle, the string kept getting caught in the bottom, so I did twist the handle the other way up. So I had just a short section to go around just to keep things under control. But you'll work that out when you do it, if you follow along with the project. That sometimes you'd have to swap your hands around to get things to feel right, and so you don't get a tangle with your string. So I'm just doing the last few rounds at the edge here, and you can see when I take my hand away that it's got that really great shape to it, and you can see that lovely crescent detail, the way it's slightly chunkier in the middle and fades off to the outside edges. So the next thing is, when you're happy with the coverage that you've got, is to cut off the length of string, and then I tied that, well, I didn't tie it off, I added a dab of hot glue on the underside of the handle and then glued my string in place. I then went back in with my scissors and just held the string in place so I didn't burn myself on the hot glue. And there's my finished handle, all ready for attaching back onto my bucket. Once my bucket is dry, I can think about adding some decorative details on it. So the paint coverage has been really good. You can just see where the little rust mark was. But other than that, all looks great. The bottom's been covered, and you can see that I've got a white return edge to the bucket, and then it is cream, the rest of it. I'm going to add a black detail at the top and a black detail at the bottom, and then mark those rust spots with a bit of black paint as well, so it looks like an enamel chip. I like adding on my decorative detail with one of these mini sponge rollers. So I'm using some black acrylic paint, and I squeeze a small amount out onto a plate. It just means then that you can wash the plate when you finish, so you're not creating lots of rubbish. So it's a reusable plate. I then go ahead and dab my sponge into the paint and then just blot off some of the excess. I don't want too much paint on at once, just in case it spills. So going around the top edge, just dabbing all the way around the edge, and I just go back in. If there's any patches that were particularly light, I go back in and correct them, and also just have a look at the inside edge as well and see how much paint I want to go over the lip of the bucket. I then turn the bucket over and start working on the bottom edge. Because my sponge was quite chunky, I did spill onto the sides of the bucket. So you've got options there, either just accept them as a sort of imperfection of the bucket, sort of a bit of an aging, or go back in and cover over with a little bit of white paint afterwards. Then I'm adding the little details, or putting back those rust spots near where the hinge for the handle was, just to make that into a more obvious feature. You could see it just a sort of change in texture where the paint had chipped off, so I'm just sort of accentuating that detail. Once my black trim paint was dry, I then added in, well, reattached the handle. So I'm just slightly concerned about the paint spill at the bottom of the bucket, and you'll see what I did with that right at the end. I did in fact decide to go over and try and disguise it a little bit. So I snapped the handles back on, and then I'm going to be adding a decal that says fresh cut flowers in the middle. So I need to make sure I get the positioning right there. I've designed this decal on my Cricut Explore Air, so I've cut it out and weeded it, and then it's rubbed onto some transfer paper that you can see there, the clear paper. I'm just trying to decide whether to have it low on the flat surface of the bucket where it would be much easier to apply, or to have it slightly further up, which means having the flower section of the decal on the ridged part of the bucket. And then you see me here using my scraper to make sure the decal is firmly affixed to the transfer paper. And when I'm happy with that, I will then peel off the backing paper, and the decal will appear in reverse on the transfer paper. So next I need to position my decal centrally onto the bucket. I've decided to have the fresh cut script above those ridge lines and then having the flowers running across the ridge lines, and I've placed it by eye equidistant between the two handles. I then use my scraper to rub over the top of the transfer paper. That will adhere the text to the bucket, and where I've got the text going over the ridges, using my scraper on its sharp edge to really get down in between the text to make sure it does actually affix properly to the bucket. It's much easier when you're using decals to use them on a completely smooth, flat surface, so it's slightly challenging, but definitely not impossible. And then the moment of truth, I slowly start to remove the transfer paper, and that reveals that the decal is firmly affixed on the side of the bucket. Looks pretty good. I'm really pleased with the way this has worked out. I could have left my bucket just like this, but partly because I wanted to cover up the little scuffs at the bottom of the bucket, I've decided that I'm going to add a light wash of white acrylic paint over the top, and that'll just help sort of bed in the text as well, so it won't look so brand new. It'll have more of a weathered look to it. You'll see me here using a dry brushing technique. I've dabbed my brush into the acrylic paint and taken off the excess onto a piece of kitchen towel, and then lightly brushing over my lettering. And as I work, I think, oh no, I've put it on too heavily. So what I do then is wipe off some of the acrylic paint before it's had a chance to dry, and then I just touch up at the bottom edge where I had those smears from where I was adding in the black trim on the bottom of the can, and just tidy that up a little bit. I'm rather pleased with the way my bucket has turned out. All I need to do now is add fresh flowers. I've picked some flowers for my garden, not too many, and I've kept them quite short. What I need to do now is arrange them in my hand, cut them to length so they're not going to hang out of my bucket, and then I'll tie them together in an elastic band. Ideally, you'd want your fresh flowers to be in water, but if you're gifting it to a teacher, I'll show you a little trick for keeping the flowers fresh until they get to school. I'm going to start with my greenery first. This is Choisia, quite a common shrub. Hold the stems up to your bucket and just gauge how long they need to be. So I need to cut off the bottom few centimetres. I'm going to go about there. Check they're the right size. I think they'll be okay. Once you've got your leaves cut to the right length, you need to take off any of the side shoots, any of the leaves that will sit inside the bucket. You don't want anything being in your water. The reason for that is they'll start to rot off. They'll discolour your water and you'll end up with a stinky mess, and that will shorten the life of your flowers. Once you've got the height right for the first lot of greenery, you can use that to measure the height of your other flowers. I've got sedum here, also known as the ice plant, so I'll measure up, recut, and then pull off the bottom leaves. And my last flower, I think this is a Rebecca. Same thing, measure up, recut, and trim off just one of the leaves. I'm not going to do any special kind of arrangement. I'm just going to bunch the flowers in my hand and move them around until I'm happy. Using bushy greenery gives you a really good base because it fills out so much space. Add in my fennel. A little bit of the sedum. And some more on the other side. You see how great that looks, all the different colours and textures. I love the way the shiny leaves are up against the rougher texture of the flower heads. And my thistle, I might aim that right for the middle. And then to finish, add in my two flowers. You can move things around until you find it looks really pretty. You might not get it right first time, but that's the joy of arranging with fresh flowers. You can move them around until you feel really happy with them. And to stop my stems falling apart, now I've got them nicely positioned, I'm going to tie them with an elastic band. We've got a drawer full of these at home from when the postie drops them accidentally on the street. So what I do is loop the band over one of the stems slide it up to the top, and then wrap it around everything. And then the end loop goes back over the stem, and that will hold everything neatly in place. As I'm using fresh flowers, I'll need to add some water. Before you do this though, do make sure your container is watertight, otherwise you'll have water seeping out everywhere. Of course, if your children are going to give flowers like this to your teacher, you probably don't want them to be in fresh water. So I've got a little trick that'll keep your flowers fresh until your teacher can add water for his or herself. For this, I'll need some kitchen towel, a piece of string, and I'm using the plastic lining from a cereal packet. I love being able to recycle and reuse things, so instead of using a brand new plastic bag, I'll make use of something I've got lying around at home already. My bag doesn't need to be very deep, so I'm going to cut it in half. I'll put that to one side for the moment, and then with my kitchen towel I'm going to dip it into the water and give it a squeeze and gently unwrap it. So I've got 2 sheets of kitchen towel here that I folded in half, and then wrap it around my flowers. So it'll keep them fresh for a little while, but this isn't a permanent solution. Of course, don't forget to tell your teacher that they will need to take off the kitchen towel and put the flowers in fresh water when they get them home. Then all you need to do then is pop them inside your plastic bag and gather the edges round. It doesn't need to be neat, it's just a way of keeping your flowers fresh until they arrive at school. Take a piece of string round and tie it in a knot. And there you have a beautiful posy of fresh cut flowers all ready to welcome your teacher back to school. I'll leave a link in the show notes underneath this video to the shop section of my website so you can buy your own fresh cut flower decal. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget also to check out all the other videos in Heidi's playlist. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you next time.